Hey guys, this is Dane Holsey, and I'm here to talk about my project, which I've titled Growing Up in Lindentown, Life in the Shadow of the University of Georgia. I decided to use story maps to make my project, and my aim was to create an image of Lindentown according to the residents, using the interviews and the sketch maps that we made, and also talk a little bit more about the destruction of the neighborhood from the residents' perspective, and expand on the context of how urban renewal affected this process and what Athens looked like at the time. And so a majority of the data that I use is a lot of the scanned records, a lot of the removal records, and a majority of it is audio files and the sketch map that we created in class. Moving on here, I have my introduction, which explains Athens in the 1960s and how Lindentown played into it. I've included a letter from Dean Tate and some pictures and images of Lindentown residents. Here's an example of the audio files that I used. So what I did was I took the interview that we had, used a Screencast-O-Matic program, which is the same that I'm using to record this right now, and I took a recording playing through the audio, blacked out the background so it gave an appearance of being more of just an audio file rather than a full-on video file. So when you play it, it sounds like this.
Where do you remember walking? We walked in where?
I know that's right.
Where do you remember walking during the time you lived in Lindentown?
Yeah, so you get the idea. I wanted to include some quotes next to the audio files to give it a little bit more explanation and context as well. Here's my major map that I used. I used QGIS to make it and just imported it to story maps as an image, and it's mostly focused on the cartographic elements rather than quantitative data, just to represent Lindentown as it would have looked to a city planner in the 1960s. I continue on to expand on some of the families. First, I talk about the Johnson family with Miss Geneva Johnson and the records that she provided. Next is the Crook family, Mr. Bobby Crook, and all of the helpful records that they provided as well. And the third family was Miss Freddie Jackson's family, the Brown family, and I included a few examples of this just to give some ideas of the life and times of Lindentown residents. Then I went on to explain the sketch matching process, how we created this qualitative data, and how the interview was conducted to give a better idea of this. Here's the sketch map itself. I just took the straight TIFF file that was uploaded to our working data folder, put it into QGIS, and then exported it here into story maps. From this entire this large image, I zoomed in on a couple spots, and things that we had spoken about in the interview, I wanted to focus on a few different highlights to give an idea of what the residents made themselves. Moving on, I wanted to create a different section that begins to talk about the renewal. Here's an interview with Miss Geneva Johnson talking about them taking the home from her father, and an audio file of talking about the mounds of dirt that were built up and the houses being burned, etc. And I wanted to include a map similar that would include the Lindentown neighborhood of today as it stands, as you can see, where Russell Hall, Brumby Hall, and Creswell Hall now are. This is my conclusion, which talks again about the context of Athens, the injustice, and links to some information in the Lindentown project. And then I go into a final acknowledgments and thanks. Please take a look at this further. I've got a lot of stuff in here. There should be a link included. And other than that, if you have any questions for me, I'm happy to discuss it, and I look forward to hearing about everybody else's projects. Thanks. Bye.